Greetings. Welcome to SeptumSin versus the world. I'm SeptumSin. I'm here with another episode of AntiClimax with our anime viewers, Kotobuki Jake, Roger from Animazing,
Hello.
and Brittany from Danejurous Arts.
Hi.
So we got technically my birthday was last month. So to celebrate my birthday, I got to choose the anime I wanted to cover, which I've wanted to cover since we started, which was Cromartie High School. Which I really have to admit, I did this because I really wanted to revisit the series to see if it still held up. Because a lot of other series don't necessarily hold up from the time I really enjoyed it back in the day. But I'm going to assume that most of y'all have probably watched Cromartie before, at least once back in the day.
I believe I was the one to introduce you to it, so yes.
Yeah.
Actually, this is my first time watching it.
Oh wow. Well, why don't we start with you, Roger, then? Tell us your first impressions of it.
Well, the first thing I did was found out there was like Production IG that did the anime. And then I started watching it and said, okay. Then I found out it was a short story form anime. So each episode is like around 10 minutes or 7 minutes or something like that. So it was like it's an ongoing kind of like a run of one episode to another episode. The animation style was very interesting to a point, because everybody looks quite a bit older than I think they would be like 14 or 15, but they look like they're like 28. So it's kind of an odd series. This kind of hard to wrap my head around, if there is a storyline to it, or is it just like whimsical? So my first impression is, I think it's an average anime. I don't know if it's going to be for everybody, but I tell you what, if you've been watching everything except everything like Berserk and Evil Dragon War Chronicles and Blood, Guts, and Gore, this is a welcome change. A breath of fresh air. That's not every single high school student is going to be like Guyver and busting out and causing issues and all that. So this is a welcome change.
It's definitely a straight out comedy. Wait till you see the live action movie. They exchanged the aliens for Planet of the Apes.
Oh my God.
So, Brittany, yes, I know that you introduced me to Cromartie back in the day. So, how is your impression of it now versus back in the day?
Well, it's definitely aged in some way. There's no way these comedy jokes in a lot of cases would be allowed these days. A lot of slurs, especially towards GLBT community in this series. But I mean, it's still humorous, still funny. And has the unique ability of starring Freddie Mercury without having Freddie Mercury.
Shoot, even the cover I used for the to advertise this on YouTube, they've got the Queen album cover that they're doing.
Right.
All right. Well, how about you, Jake? How has it aged for you?
There we go. There was our Queen cover.
And yet Freddie is not present at all.
Beatles cover.
They don't even list Freddie on the Google site.
But yeah, well, I know, Brandon, I know you, of course, introduced this to me years ago. And it's I think Roger said breath of fresh air. I will admit that. Yes, there are ways in which it has aged poorly. There are ways in which it is comedy that it's weird because in some ways the comedy is very juvenile and in some ways it's very highbrow. And actually, a lot of the jokes revolve around that. Like, you've got the guy from the rival school who fancies himself a comedian, but he has such a droll sense of humor that it's really quite interesting to see what he considers to be comedy gold. And that's the source of a lot of the jokes. But it's a breath of fresh air because, yes, the characters do look older. But also, it's really notable that they're almost all guys. Like, there are no cute schoolgirls in the whole series, which must be the only anime in existence where that's the case.
Except for the last episode, though I don't know if you would call them cute schoolgirls.
No.
Yeah, that was an old hag.
No. That was a weird-ass episode.
It's as if they got so much guyism in it that they needed some girlism in, and they realized it. So they got to bring in the girlism so they give some counterbalance to the guyism. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So what the heck is going on with all the cross-dressing suddenly?
It was, that might have, I don't know. That whole episode was weird, and it's hard to say. But in general, though, I think the only significant female character is Maeda's mother, who's actually apparently voiced by Megumi Hayashibara, but
really?
She doesn't say much. She just kind of and it's just like but there's
they probably just had her on standby doing something else. This is like, hey, can you just mute the sound?
It's either that or they couldn't pay her enough.
Yeah, she happened to be in the studio. Yeah, they happened to be in the studio, and they were like, hey, do you want to be on this show? We can't pay you. And she's like, I'm paid by the word. And they'll be like, well, how about you just vocalize? Well, and let me rephrase that. I take it back. There are cameos from the Digishrock girls, but they're like brief, weird little cameos.
There was some of those. Was this seeing that in it? So what's TJ Cherry?
Warm, fluffy rice, yeah.
Warm, fluffy rice, yeah.
Come to think of it, Digico did appear a couple of times in that in that particular show.
But I will say overall, this is such a weird assemblage of characters. It's some of them are hilarious. Like, our central character Kamiyama is described early on. He is a normal guy, goes to a school of delinquents. It gets propped up as a rabbit among lions, which somehow makes him a badass. And I just love that central conceit. And I love some of the characters. His friend with the dancing purple hair. We got Freddy. We got Mekazawa, who is voiced. They make reference to his soothing voice. And he is I'm drawing a blank and I don't know why.
Gory or the gorilla.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through some of the names here. So the main character, of course, is Kamiyama. Then we also have Hashida, who's the purple-haired mohawk guy. Then you have Maeda, who's the blonde, no eyebrow character. Mekazawa, Freddy, Gorilla, or Gory as they call him in the dub. Takanuchi, who is the incredible fighter that is susceptible to motion sickness. And Hakudo's lackey, Hakudo's the rich character. And those are pretty much your main characters in the series.
Right. Oh, well, actually, no, I think it's Takanuchi is on you. Yamaguchi's the guy from the rival school, I think, with the big fro. Yeah, so he's the other. He's not a Cromartie student, but he's a major side character.
Major player.
Yeah, but again, Norio Wakamoto was the name I was trying to think of. He plays Mekazawa, and he has a great voice, but the way he voices Mekazawa is not how you expect a robot to sound.
Oh, I love the English dub for that. And
Yeah.
yes, the English dub definitely is a soothing voice for Mechazombie.
But yeah, but
who is Jack Hickman.
okay.
Yeah, for English voice.
I don't think I feel
You've definitely heard him. You may not recognize him, but you definitely heard him. He's in a lot of anime.
I was going to say I meant to watch this in English, but I feel like I watched it this time. I honestly can't remember. I hate to say that. I can't remember which language I watched.
In the dub, for those who are wondering who Hickman is, he's the voice. The most one prominent I know this group will know is the dad in Azumanga Daioh.
Okay.
It's the cat dad.
I think
so. He's just like
played him in Japanese too.
I hate to read
Probably
Azumanga Daioh. It used to be a really good series for me, but I can't tell whether that one held up or not. It's been so long.
We'll have to cover that soon. But I did want
we got to cover. What was it? Digiturate too. I mean, we got the references here.
True. But I did want to mention. What's that?
Warm fuzzy rice.
Yes. I did want to mention one last thing about this one, and that is that there are a handful of shows I've seen. A while back, I had a Hub Pages account. It's technically still there. I haven't looked at it probably in over a year, but I think it's technically still there. But I did put an article on it that I spent a lot of time on. And got a lot of views about different anime for beginners. And I put them in different categories. And this one and Zetsubo Sensei were the two that I said were anime for Adult Swim fans. And I really feel like this would be right at home on Adult Swim. It's the right kind of humor, and it translates better, I think, to an American audience than a lot of anime would.
It was played on G4 at one point. So
G4 would suit it.
Yeah. But I feel like they were actually trying. I mean, including Freddie. I mean, well, again, all the album covers that showed you were actually British pop stars. But still, the whole Western audience was clearly on the minds of the people that made this. And I feel like even though it is a very Japanese setting, it includes so many things that Western audiences would get. I really feel like this would be a good anime to introduce people to anime with, as long as you maybe warn them that some of the humor is dated.
The humor is perfect for the time.
Yes. It is fun.
What's ironic, though, is you get the warning in between each of these episodes. They give you a warning of don't do this, which is ironic because they don't really do anything too risque in that sense. But what they say is kind of maybe sketchy, not taken well these days.
The people depicted in this show are. I'm trying to memorize. I don't know it word for word, but it's basically the people depicted in this show are delinquents. Do not do this, or this will happen. And then it shows a guy in a jail cell. And it's interesting that they start each episode with that, and then they roll on into June, meaning Genuine, which is got to be one of the best bangers in any anime ever. I love that theme, and I love the animation that goes with it. The opener to this is a highlight for me.
So, Roger, you were trying to say something. You kind of got cut off.
Sorry.
Oh no, that was my fault totally. I simply was making a comment that they were saying, don't do the stuff in real life. This guy was eating a whole bunch of pencils.
Oh God, yeah.
And they were saying that don't do this at home.
I don't think it would land you in jail, but definitely,
it'll land you somewhere.
My kind of impression on the beginning of each episode, they had the close-up eyes of the main guy was kind of like they used to have an anime where they used to say, don't watch too close. Watch at a distance. It'd be something like that, like some sort of homage to that. But yeah, it was a weird entrance and quite the interesting purple themed intro. Everything was
It
like
could very,
Because this
it
came
could
out
very
in
well
early
be.
2000s.
It could very well be an homage to something like that because Kamiyama, even though he's at a school for delinquents, at the end of the day, he is a very orderly person who has a very
2003.
ordered mindset of the world, and he goes by rules. He tries to apply logic to every situation, even the most illogical. And that's again one of the central jokes of the series. But I could see him absolutely doing the PSA like it's fully in character for him to be right at the beginning doing a PSA.
Now, do you want to know the reason why he ended up in Cromartie? You have to have read the manga to know it.
I think they do say that at the beginning, don't they?
Yeah, well, they say you must read the manga. If you want to find out, read the manga.
Right.
The reason he ended up in Cromartie is he accidentally just put his paperwork in for Cromartie by accident. It's purely by accident. So that's the whole thing. So it's a joke and within a joke. So
Right.
Now, another anime that's very similar to this is GTO. You know, it's kind of like in high school again.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of
Yeah.
So if you took all the serious part about a GTO, I guess you would get Cromartie High School. I guess you would.
There are a lot in the early 2000s and late 90s anime that covered sort of delinquents in high school.
Yeah.
A lot of them just didn't hit, but there were. I do recall seeing at least 4 on the regular from, and in this case, all of these were released by ADV in the U.S. So I do remember ADV doing this series along with another series that was just like it, where the teacher was a mobster.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the name.
Well, there were a couple. Like you had that great teacher, whatever his name is.
Great teacher.
Great teacher, Hazamuka. Yeah.
And,
Goku-san probably.
Goku-san was the one I was trying to think of.
But
oh, geez, you're right. I think there were a couple. I'm trying to think if there were a couple I saw. This may be the one I saw, but I feel like there was another one.
I know there were several because I would eat the hell up out of anime, and these were all on the if you had Comcast, the anime channel that they had in, and they still do, I think, in the sort of stream, what do you call it, pre-programmed to go into through the on-demand.
They also had a lot of shows that were not about delinquents, but they were like important supporting players. And one that comes to mind from this time era was Fruits Basket, where her best friends are both considered delinquents. You know, so
Yu Yu Hakusho, the two main, both the main character and I'm forgetting
the orange character.
The orange hair. I apologize to the fans who are probably screaming at us, but it's late. I don't remember the name.
That's right. I don't remember it either. I thought it starts with a Y, though.
No, actually, it starts with an H.
H? What? Orange-headed guy?
The orange-haired guy starts with an H.
Huh.
The Y is Yusuke Urameshi. I do remember Yusuke's full name.
Okay. Well, anyways, a bunch of hoodlums, yeah, but just like this show.
But yeah, I mean, there was something in there around the 90s just to have hoodlums in anime for some reason, or in manga. You don't see them as prominent these days. You did, of course, see them when the remake of Fruits Basket. But you don't really see them as prominent these days.
There was something called like the Bomber Bikers from, was it Shibuya or something like that? Bomber Bikers.
I mean, there's also what was it? Tokyo Revengers recently is delinquents.
Yeah. I need to read that
All
one.
right.
You want to carry? You want to sort of cover some of what each episode covers a bit?
I think we lost.
I don't
Did
know.
we
Maybe
lose Brandon?
for a minute. Well, I guess we kind of touched on the first episode. That's the where we're introduced to Cromartie, we're introduced to Kamiyama and Maida and what's his face, Hayashida, and a couple of the other characters, and you got all this stuff where like they're kind of comparing reputations to see who's the biggest badass, and they're bragging about what their middle school names were and all that kind of stuff. And Maida comes on like, I was this real, no one could mess with me. And they're like, oh yeah, what was your name? And he's like, I didn't really have one. And they all lose interest.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. Each episode they build up to something, and then they all lose interest. It just comes down to that.
And Maida is sort of the whipping post throughout the series. Like he's sort of the poor guy who gets pulled along in everything, and yet no one really. He's just kind of there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, keeps getting overshadowed by other people and what have you.
Well, I mean, when you have Freddie Mercury, a gorilla, and a talking robot, I mean, you pretty much are gonna get outshined by them.
Well, even when they start using his house just without asking, they just start showing up, and his mother basically becomes one of the guys in a sense, and he's still losing out. It's kind of crazy. I'd feel for him if he had more. He's actually I think one of the less interesting characters overall. So most of them, at least, there's a little bit of empathy for, I guess you could say. And even though Kamiyama is usually sort of self-righteous and seems to have a stick up his butt, the fact that he does try to look at everything through logic, all the craziness around him, and somehow, I just, again, I love that whole, you must be a badass to be a rabbit in a school of badasses. It's just,
it's one badass mother bunny.
Exactly. And the way that Hayashida just kind of glomps onto him and supports him as this de facto leader, even though it's clear that it's I just find that kind of amusing. I know Hayashida gets revealed to be like this really rich dude, but I must have slept through that episode because I don't, it's not fresh in my brain at all.
I don't recall that.
Well, they had, it wasn't his butler that's in the opening, or it might have been.
No, it's not Hayashida. They thought Hayashida and the butler for Hakuto were related because they have the exact same face. They both have purple hair, but they're like, no, we're not related.
Okay. Yeah, Hakuto's one that I just never really cared for. He's
the peripheral rich kid that you put in any man.
Yeah, he's pretty much the Mendo of this one, or Kuno, but Kuno and Mendo are just so much funnier. This guy's his lackey's kind of funny, and his eternal drive to just once say his name. And yet no one ever gives him that chance. They will, even when they straight up apologize to him, Oh, I'm sorry. We've been rude to you. Go ahead, tell us your name, and then before he can finish, they are doing something else. But those two are kind of a fun pair. But I like how Hokuto ended up there. That he wanted to dominate every school, and because his father was rich, he could get in and do whatever he wanted to any school he wanted. And he ends up at a school that had no ties to his father whatsoever.
Well, no. He was like his father's on the school's board.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, our school's municipal. We don't have anybody in charge of the board.
Right. Yeah. He didn't plan that one very well.
Nope.
Yeah. But guess we did.
I mean, I think I don't know if Digishirat ran on side of this. Because we get the characters in there, and sometimes I know they did it with Bleach and Gintama, where they'll do little cuts, nods to the series before in the programming. I think that's the only reason, probably why, unless it's also in the same magazine, which was from Kodansha, but I don't know. Off the top of my head, why we get the Digishirat characters in here. We'll get into those, like I said, whenever we get to Digishirat.
Yeah.
But I mean, each episode has its little quirks, and they seem kind of run together. I mean, they do have playback in other episodes, or you come back to the same jokes. Right. Of course, with the Takenouchi, when he goes missing to America due to a attempt to kidnap the plane that he was on, and he being motion sick couldn't get off. So he gets replaced by a masked version of him, which is just one of the hijackers. Right. Ironically, in right next to him, so you have the bald man and the masked character behind it. And then you have moments like they would do a callback to Hachiyama wanted to do baseball at one time, which I think was the only point when if the Japanese students went out with face masks, helmets, and bats, sticks, then they probably would be arrested these days.
Right.
But I mean, all in all, it's an ongoing story, but it's a humorous ongoing story.
And again, we've got a few other threads that run throughout. One being that Kamiyama is also got a kind of a droll sense of humor, and he sends jokes into the local radio station under the handle Hachimitsu, I believe it is. Basically like Honey Boy. And and the other guy, Yamaguchi, who's the head of his class in the rival school, is a fanboy of Hachimitsu, and he's the one that's always trying to study. Like he wants to be a comedian, but he's also this boss, and he's trying to look like a badass while also trying to find humor in everything around him. And he ends up promoting a guy to be his second in command because he does ventriloquism and, things like that.
He promotes the dummy into the position.
Well, at first he couldn't decide. and then the dummy wins. But he's also got this thing where there's this show, Putan, that he becomes very involved with Putan later, as does Freddy. But Putan is kind of an interesting supposed comedy that they watch in this series, the show within a show.
It looks like two adults doing Teletubbies that just pretty much just do stupid jokes of just deadpan jokes, which is like, oh, I'm going to do something funny. No, I'm deadpan.
Right. Yeah. It's basically like if you took something like Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello or that kind of thing and basically drained the one of all intelligence and the other one of all emotion, then yeah, that's kind of what you got.
You get Beta Mechazawa, which is Mechazawa's little brother, who they keep doing. He's literally about the size of a Coke can, and they continuously either step on him or break him in somehow.
Yeah. Well, they also have that running. They also have that. Yeah. They also have that running joke where Mechazawa is clearly a robot and does not realize it, and is actually kind of offended when it's first suggested. And they end up finally convincing him that the electronics store is the hospital.
They turn him into a bike.
Yes.
Then it become a common rider type character.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see here. Let's see comments real quick. Of course, Mike McNally.
Hey, Mike.
Hello again. Great to see you. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you're still there. And then we've also got Joketron Zero. This was one of the funniest animes back in the day. Surprised that the people know about this gem. Indeed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Hidden gem.
Watching anime though. I mean, if we had started watching anime probably in the last 10 years or so, we probably would never have heard of this series.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. This is, even though it came out in the aughts, if you just caught up in the teens of 20s, 2000s, this would have definitely flown by, because this was a 2000s humor book and story.
Did y'all go over the reason why our protagonist was at the school? He did something really bad, but you have to read the manga. The only person here to me is probably Brittany that read the manga.
I revealed it, and his really bad thing is he accidentally got himself into Cromartie.
Well, he planned to get himself in there with his friends, but his friends backed out last minute. He wasn't smart enough to back out himself. True. Those two friends of his that they give him the simple, the very simple look that they give him. Maybe not so good a friend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they would have lived in Cromartie very well anyway.
So that is the really bad thing is he accidentally put himself in the school. Again, I mean, I gotta say my favorite out of the show episodes that I recall is the one that has the least amount of character interaction, and they keep posting on there, "You're watching Cromartie High." You can't tell you're still watching Cromartie High, and it's Gorilla Sushi.
Oh, the one where they do this whole side story that really has nothing to do with the main plot.
Absolutely, nothing to do with the main plot, and the only reason you have gore. You had a joke this episode before of the gorilla working in the sushi restaurant, and so that basically they just did an entire episode of the gorilla working in the sushi restaurant with this whole plot of the sushi chef getting too old and his son didn't want to be part of it. And they had a big fight, and basically they didn't see eye to eye, and the gorilla made banana sushi, which I don't need to say how well it turns out. The anime shows how well it turns out, and I can't eat sushi, so I'm not regularly someone who eats it. But I'm not a fan of banana. I don't know if anybody else has tried banana sushi.
Not I.
No, I have not. it was an interesting thought, but yeah, but it's one of those things that you get shows like this occasionally, and I feel like in the aughts there were a few that did this. Like Excel Saga was one where they intentionally went for a different genre just about every episode. And there were a couple there that were played for high drama, but they do that occasionally. Some of these comedies would do that. They would take they would go the drama route, and because they're comedies, it works that much better. And yes, the idea of a gorilla being the putative heir for a sushi restaurant, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
It'd definitely be an interesting draw for Japan to have a gorilla operating a sushi restaurant. I don't doubt that.
I think it would be an interesting draw anywhere that you'd have a gorilla operating a sushi restaurant. But yeah, it was. Of course, Gory is first introduced. I don't think we mentioned, but the first introduction we get to Gory, Mechazawa, and Freddy is basically Hayashida and Kamiyama are going around the school looking for badasses. And they'll open a door and see the person inside and go, and just shut the door again.
Well, when you get back to the final episode, which is the girls' episode, which is just a rehash of pretty much all the best jokes,
right,
and the first episode. When you get to the introduction of Freddie's girl counterpart, it is literally Freddie Mercury from "I Want to Be Free" music video.
Yeah.
So Freddie Mercury in the dress from the music video, Queen music video of "I Want to Be Free." So yeah, it's amusing to see the jokes. There are other musical jokes. There's a reference to Kiss at one point,
right,
in the series. I hate to say it. I mean, this was the time JoJo was getting started as a manga. So this would have been when you started getting the musical references in JoJo as well, with the namesakes. So it's amusing to see the love of American music coming into Japan and being referenced. But I mean, Kiss they get referenced so many times in anime because of the face paints.
Yeah.
But seeing Freddie Mercury actually be a character in an anime is just humorous without him ever saying a word.
Well, he also he doesn't say a word, but he does get his own music cue. Like, he does a little guitar solo that plays. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the people who did this definitely had a love for that music type.
Which I can't fault them. I love that same music. So. Let's see here. Basically the jokes are pretty basic. The animation, there's nothing really to talk about with the animation. It's still figure animation. It's very limited animation. It's amusing to see because I mean, ironically, the Gory episode, like I said, one of the reasons why it's favorite, is probably the most work they had to put in the series outside of just rehashing the same artwork over and over.
No, my favorite is definitely the Gory episode, just because I love the whole gorilla sushi, and he tries the banana sushi. Is like, some things were just not meant to be done.
Yes. I mean, I'd love to hear from somebody if they had success with banana and sushi. I've done apple and rice balls, but I have not done banana and sushi.
Well, I mean, banana and rice probably isn't so bad, but the saltiness of the seaweed.
The nori throws it off.
Because you could kind of have it as a sweet treat. So you'd have to figure out something else to tie it up with. But the rice and the banana would go together fine if you don't do a salty rice. Like, make it more like a rice pudding.
Well, I mean, that's what I did with the doing a rice ball of apple. Well, actually, no, I did do salt in the rice ball with apple because it actually helped bring the apple sweetness out. I used to use the tart apple.
See, that would work with apple and watermelon, but I don't know if it would work well with banana.
No. Any other fruit, I've never had success with rice. Bad experiences. Don't try berries and rice. Go ahead.
I had to run upstairs for a moment. It sounds like a lot of things were already covered.
Okay.
A show really doesn't have a story, so to speak. It's been too long since I've read the manga, but if I remember, the manga was one of those panel comics, like those 4-panel comic type things.
A four coma?
Yeah, it is a 4-panel comic. Just like K-On! Azumanga Daioh is a 4-panel. Digi Shirat, I believe, was a 4-panel. Well, no, Digi Shirat was its own creation.
But yeah, I mean, but even K-On! had a story going. It wasn't like a coherent story, but it did have like a timeline in the story. So I'm not really sure, though. Cromartie really didn't need as much of a story as just little vignettes.
Vignettes and callback jokes. They do callbacks throughout the series. So,
I mean, I do like that you have the terrorist, who's an adult, basically take the place of the one kid, and nobody notices.
Oh, he has glasses. He's the more sophisticated version of Takenouchi.
But then again, it's a school full of delinquents that are idiots. Shoot, even the rich kid is an idiot because he went to the wrong school by accident. I mean,
well, he went to the right school. He just thought his father had influence over a municipal school, which they don't. No one has influence. It's basically this. It's the public school of public schools for those in the U.S. It means this is where they're going to dump off, and it's rightfully shown that this would be the kind of place that would be where you drop off all the boys.
Well, I know Jake talked about the music a little bit earlier, and we can hit that, but also, of course, the animation, which is very simple, but in this instance, I really think that simplicity is best. I think having the minimal movement adds to the comedy.
It is, and then also making the characters actually so detailed. The irony is these characters are greatly detailed and not very much animation.
Right.
Though I think by having a lack of animation, it truly draws your attention fully to what they want you to see because that's where it's animated.
Yes.
Yeah.
When Hayashida's hair starts bouncing around, you notice it.
Or if you see Mekazawa's little hand twirl around.
Right.
Little bits like that.
Now, the guy with the mohawk, I don't know if he's actually is bald because, he takes off his scalp.
Oh, yes, hair on
hair. Well, what is that? There's some sort of strange situation, but he does it again. So he's trying to hide.
That's the thing. It's your visual gag. It's your visual gag. When writing a story or comedy in a comic or manga, you really, the most notable one I can refer to is Takahashi, going back to the Rama 1/2 and all that. She was known, at least until Inuyasha, to always want to put a gag somewhere in a serious scene. Just to make sure they're not just overly serious.
So you got like Kuno.
Pretty much. Well, you got little scenes little things you may miss in the background or something like that going on.
Well, there's always like Genma spinning a sign or getting on a ball and dancing around while they're trying to do serious exposition or something.
Yeah, stuff like that. Exactly. You do a little sight gag when it's all dull, dull and explanative. I mean, I know Oda does it with One Piece. I'm pretty sure a couple of manga artists also do the same. Is if you get to this all serious moment, you still might have a gag in there or something because it's meant to be lighthearted. There's stories, but they're meant to be lighthearted and bring some cheer to you.
Now, as far as the music is concerned, I do agree. The intro is one of my favorites. In its simplicity, I just love how they've got them doing that part in the chorus where they're sitting there doing their like delinquent walk down the hallway, and everybody's bouncing off of them as they go.
That shows how badass they are.
Right.
But it is a really cool piece. It's a memorable song. I think if you watch it, it's one of them that sticks with you if you see the series.
Oh yeah. Not quite so much the enders, although I think there was one that played for one episode that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the enders were like just the rock hit
right.
tone.
Well, it's sort of like how Paranoia Agent was. Paranoia Agent had mostly an instrumental ending, where it just kind of cycled over the characters laying in the grass.
Much more mellow ending, though, than this one.
Well, the ending definitely fit something that you would see in Adult Swim.
Yeah.
I think that you could still bring this back to Adult Swim today, and most people would be fine with it. Because it still has a lot of humor that doesn't hold up.
I mean, like I said, it was on G4. I think G4 was trying to do a competition to Adult Swim at the time. Because Adult Swim would have had Cowboy Bebop, Inuyasha.
Didn't they also do Super Milk Chan at this point?
Yeah, they probably did Super Milk Chan. They also probably were doing Crayon Shin Chan at this point.
This would have fit very well in with Super Milk Chan and Crayon Shin Chan.
Absolutely. Which, ironically, Crayon Shin Chan is supposed to be a kids show in Japan, but when it's brought to America, they made it very crass humor.
I was going to say that's the way they localized it. Same thing with Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is another good example of the localization definitely changing the show. But this one I thought was still very good. I think it mostly holds up. I think culturally, anything that tries to tie into an age's comedy is going to be insulting to somebody eventually down the line. Just because,
you're gonna run into those colorful jokes, and no matter what the older stuff. I mean, heck, I recently rewatched Blazing Saddles.
That one.
To talk about how offensive that film was, but at the same time, it was meant. Mel Brooks made it to be offensive to make that point.
Now, unfortunately, a good example of how things have changed a little bit since those days. I saw the first episode or two of the new History of the World, and that has not gone over nearly as well with people. Mm-hmm. But they're trying really hard to be raunchy and offensive. And
what is that on Max?
I can't remember where we saw it. Hulu. Yes.
Oh, it's on Hulu. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, raunchy and offensive these days is very different than raunchy and offensive back then.
Yeah.
Raunchy and offensive these days, in my opinion, I just do not understand why I'd want to watch it, honestly.
I mean, for all I know, these days, Teen Titans Go is what they play as Adult Swim these days.
Well,
it's possible. It's honestly possible. Cartoon Network loves to play that show.
I watched a breakdown of it not too long ago, where somebody was talking about, I think it was Saber Spark or whoever it was, who was talking about how the show, it's like, were we unjust in hating the show when it came on?
No.
No.
I've watched some Teen Titans Go. I cannot tolerate that show.
And of course, my whole thing was, well, when it came out, I never watched it because I just thought that the demographic was 5 to 10 years old, so it wasn't for me.
I'm not so sure about that. 10-year-olds, maybe.
It was made. I mean, that show was made to be, 5 to 10-year-old range, particularly with some gross out humor, jokes here and there. I mean, that's what they were aiming for, but they're realizing that market's kind of not working these days. That's why a lot of shows these days, they're either going to pitch really young kids or they're going to pitch adults. They're not going to kind of do the in-between these days. And it's just because they just don't see success in it. The when you're old enough to watch YouTube, you're watching YouTube or, something else.
Culture is very different these days.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Right now, I think a lot of people would say the worse. No matter what side you're on of viewpoints, politically or individually, I mean, just worse because it's a lot of stuff just bumbling and failing.
Yeah.
You can see it in the box office.
But then again, if you think about it, Steven Universe wasn't that far back. Gravity Falls wasn't that far back. I mean, those were in the age of Teen Titans Go.
Yeah. So was Owl House and Amphibia.
So there are some amazing shows that have come out. There's still amazing creativity in the world. Sometimes it's somewhat stifled, but then again, what time was it not stifled? It's just stifled in a different way. I mean, Lord help us.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, we say, the 2000s. I think that's probably the early 2000s is probably the least held back on any form of humor.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the culture. If you grew up through that, it's really hard because that was the culture where everybody was doing everything they could to find something offensive.
Yeah. I mean, that's when South Park was getting big. You had Family Guy get its start in that time, being its crass and humor. I almost want to say that's when It's Always Sunny, probably towards the late aughts, but
yeah, I think you're right. It's Always Sunny's up to what, like season 16, 15?
Something like that.
Something like that. Been around for a minute.
And Cromartie's humor really does fit in with the whole find something offensive. Now, not all of it. There is a lot of old school just reaction humor in this that you see in anime from the beginning.
Well, I mean, if we're thinking of it, of course, we're also looking at it from an American standpoint. If we were in Japan in 2000s and saw this come on air, this would have been horrifically offensive. So, I mean, this would be one that, the mothers groups would be out on the street, telling you to not watch this series. If you do, you're going to, be punished. There
was a bit of a rebellious phase for teenagers then as well over there.
Yeah.
Which, of course, that's what this was marketed to.
There still is. I mean, Japan's actually ironically become less sort of stymied over the years on their humor. Before we even started the stream, we were talking about Mrs. Kobayashi's Dragon Maid and how I referenced that China banned boobage on that series. They also banned blood and turn it into milk, which is not a good choice. In other shows, it does not look like milk. It looks like some other liquid coming out of humans.
Well, China has a lot of screwed up stuff already, so That they don't seem to get it right most of the time when it comes to their censorship. It frankly surprises me that they allow certain things in the country at all.
Oh yeah. But I mean, we're sort of in an age of censorship, either self-censorship or, you know, I'd almost want to say company censorship there. So, I mean, either they'll not go one way with the humor, or they won't, or you won't take the humor that great. And because of that, we do kind of hurt comedy a little bit. Because comedy is always meant to be offensive. It always has.
Well, let's switch back the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I think that the 2000s were a direct result of the 80s and 90s. And you know how bad the censorship was. I mean, Jake and I are covering for this channel, once we get the show going, we call it tabletop horror, because the initial tabletop D&D in media, a lot of the early movies we've watched, that these, and I'm sure Jake could attest, have been kind of like, it's this evil thing. And, you know, but again, that's all about that censorship thing.
I still hear about the evils of D&D, trust me.
I mean, shoot.
Certain rough, that is.
We watched a Chilean film that was kind of had an anti-Vampire the Masquerade notion. So I'm not sure if we got it all in translation, but it definitely kind of felt like that was how it was leading. And that's, but again, I think that's how it is. I mean, stuff like this, I think it holds up in the long run, because I feel like the humor will come back around to it.
I think people will still find this enjoyable. You just go into it knowing that there's going to be probably something offending you. I was kind of shocked that it kind of offended me a little bit this time around. It's like, what? I was like, I don't remember that. And I was like, oh, geez. But at the same time, I'm like, I'll wave it off. It's nothing. It's the time. One. Ironically, most of these actors that still play roles wouldn't do these jokes. I'm kind of surprised Greg Ayres, who was playing Hakuta Lackey, was part of this show. And of course, Greg's openly gay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's surprising
too,
with the.
Because LGBTQ characters and anime used to mainly be portrayed as these creepy, predatory characters.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it certainly was. And then I turn around and I watch what I just last night. I finally watched the end of Witch of Mercury, which is the latest in the Gundam series, and it ends with a gay couple. So it's kind of ironic to see that. It's still an issue in Japan with marriage. Ironically, they take transgenders better than they do gay marriage in Japan. But I mean, that's part of the Asian culture.
Well, they're also really trying to boost the population because it's so bad.
Oh, they're trying to boost the population, but they won't do the one thing that they know can boost it, which is open their borders to new residents.
Well, that's because they're also xenophobic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the racism is still strong with them.
And I'm sure the recent pandemic probably doesn't help on that.
Oh no.
No, it did not. It makes it a bit worse. They didn't even open their borders to visitors until, I'd like to say, this time last year. So that was 2 years after the pandemic. They were still not allowing tourists.
And now they're trying to play catch up by it. I mean, I've got
they realized their beer industry was suffering because they weren't getting tourists to come drink.
They realized about like a little less than a year ago, it's like that tourism was bringing in a lot of money we needed. So they've been doing a lot of incentives now. They're trying to play catch up and I'll say, hey guys, you remember how you always wanted to go to Japan? This is the best time. Come on, come on.
Well, I mean, there is that thing. I did have to tell my brother and his husband, since they are a gay couple, when they went to Japan earlier this year, I said, now look, there are going to be people that might be offended if you so much as touch hand or hold hands together. Just be prepared for it. And I mean, it's sadly, that's Japanese culture. They are very stoic. I think I watched a video recently that said it's the Bushido code that they still follow to this day that's slowly destroying Japan. Because they want to follow their strict law and honor. But I mean, I love it. It's something to be impressed with them about.
They are getting somewhat better. Shoot, even their work culture is getting a little bit better. I mean, I remember watching one. There's a newer series about a guy who is working for one of these black companies.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
and he's like, when the zombie apocalypse breaks out, he is like,
oh yeah, that's Zom 100. That's one of the new animes of the season. It's Zom 100. It's on Netflix.
But knowing that the culture is actually more and more people are starting to look at that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, a lot of Gretzko was about the black companies and how they treated you, and how horrible it was. So I mean, it's going to continue to be that way a little bit. Sadly, it's not going to turn over the next decade. We'll see slight changes, but we won't really see much. But I mean, in a way, I want to see Japan thrive in that sort of 2000 creation with anime and manga and light novels that brought this series on. And I want to see that happen again with America. I mean, that's sad to say, but I mean, I'd love to see more of those. I for God love it. I love It's Always Sunny. It's a great show. Any of these crass humor shows that are truly just, they're not good people, but you're going to enjoy them anyway, and their jokes.
So I guess we'll go ahead and get this wrapped up a bit. But before we do, of course, Brittany, you had said pretty much your favorite episode was the gory one.
Yeah.
Mine is also the gory one, but we never got Roger or Jake's favorite episode. So I guess we'll start with you, Roger. What was your favorite episode in the series? How about you, Jake?
Quiet. Jacob?
I do like the gory episode. I'm not 100% sure I have a clear favorite, but I'm kind of inclined to go with the first episode just because, the way they set everything up, it just that whole, we first meet Freddy, we first meet Gory, we first meet Mekazawa, that the way that they do that, the way they set up Kamiyama as a rabbit among lions, I really liked a lot of the first episode, and it just kind of set the tone for the whole series. So I guess I'll go with that.
Yeah. Are you back, Roger? I figured you must have tuned out during our cultural discussion.
Oh, okay. Oh, you hear me now?
Yep. So what's your favorite episode?
My favorite episode was the one where they are. I think they're going across the country looking for a baseball tournament, and they get lost in the forest. They're hanging out in a campfire or like a round circle thing, just figuring out how to get home. And they find a gorilla. And they can't find the gorilla to get them home. So I said, "What in the heck is going on with this?" So it kind of stuck in my mind.
They find that ramen restaurant in the middle of the forest.
Is that was where Freddy was going, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Freddy kept going to the ramen restaurant.
Yeah.
While everybody else is starving to death.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that reminds me a lot of that Maison Ikoku special where they're on the island,
Right.
but they're not that far from civilization yet.
Well,
some of them actually knew where civilization was.
Well, yeah, where Kyoko and Godai were like the only two that were clueless. All the others, one by one, found the civilization and kept going over there without telling anyone else. Yeah. And that's kind of like it with Freddy. And I like how they show like him just, it's not like it's a quick hop and a jump. He's traveling. But he keeps coming back to join the group. At least he's coming back, I guess.
Well, I mean, he's got to sit down and suffer with everybody else. He just gets up and goes and have a big bowl of ramen and goes right back.
Well, with that being said, I guess well, I was going to say for our newbies, but we don't have any newbies here.
You have a newbie. Roger was a newbie.
Well, I mean, like anime newbies.
Oh.
I think all of us, even me and Jacob, which are probably the youngest of the anime watchers here, as far as like we started anime earlier than everybody else. I mean, later than everybody else. But even we've been doing this for a lot longer than. I mean, I've been doing it since the '90s, and
yeah.
And Roger and Jake, you've been doing what since the early 2000s. So,
I mean, I was introduced to anime or before that, but you really made it your mission to get me in on it around 02, 03, somewhere around there.
But I think we've all been familiar with certain comedy animes that are quirky comedy animes.
Yeah, like my Bride's a Mermaid, for instance.
Exactly.
Gintama.
So why don't I go back around for outros, and as a part of your outro, tell me your favorite comedy anime and why. I'll start with you, Brittany.
Interesting.
All right. I'm Brittany, otherwise known as Danejurous Arts, or I don't know. We are coming back. I've made an announcement this week. Actually, last week. Excuse me. It's been last week. We made an announcement of our new comic series, Witchin', coming out soon, where it's going to be a monthly webcomic series I've been working on sort of in secret. But we're also coming back with Demon Blade. We're coming back with a lot of other comics soon, and we're going to be coming back with streaming eventually. Still waiting on a few things for that. But my favorite comedy series in anime has to be Gintama right now. By all, if you like an absurd comedy like Cromartie, then Gintama is going to be just like that delicious cake of absurd comedies. You take samurais, you add space elements, and you add the just weirdest crap that can ever happen in the 30-minute episode, and it's just a damn riot.
I have still only read a good portion of the manga, and only seen them as far as the anime. I've only seen the movie, so I'm guessing that the anime series must be a lot weirder than that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if nothing else, you need to stick out until the Toilet Wars. That is by far one of the funniest moments in all of anime.
I remember the sandpaper thing in the manga.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, essentially, yeah. Four men in a bathroom with only a piece of sandpaper as a toilet paper. And how you solve that problem.
What about you, Roger? What is your favorite comedy anime? And tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm kind of conflicted on the comedy one. I got quite a few titles. I'm kind of conflicted. But ironically, if I were to say that what I would recommend, it's again, My Bride is a Mermaid. It's perfect. It has everything you ever want in a comedy. It has silly characters, has an interesting storyline, and is made by Gainax. So yeah,
it's great. It's a great one. I agree. Yeah.
I have a hard time. I mean, Azumanga Daioh is really good in its own interesting ways, but there are other few other ones that really stick in my mind. But that one is the one. I would say was my favorite overall comedy. GTO has really good comedic moments as well. It kind of ties into Cromartie High School. So again, I'm going to give the nod to the my Bride's Mermaid. My name is Roger. I run a small Facebook group called Animation Collection Company. We're kind of like a kind of specialist in large scale anime collecting. We kind of got into now a little more into other stuff like figures and interesting personalities. So it's hardly ever a boring situation going to seeing what the heck is going on with my group next. Every time I log in the next morning, I do that every morning and kind of take a good monitor it. So it's never been a boring moment ever for the last 3 years.
Wait until you decide to open it up and let the floodgates come in.
The
thousands of members.
500 person rule. That's a lot.
Yeah, you'd really have to do a lot of quality control if you managed to get
I read every single person that applies. I look at their look at their page and make sure they're not any kind of creepos coming in or anything like that. So yeah, I'm going to have to lighten the load. My right hand head takes care of some of it too.
Man, good thing I got in under the wire before.
You're easily qualified. There's something easily qualified.
What about you, Jake? Your favorite comedy anime and your favorite... Oh, and a little bit about yourself. I know what it is. It's Ping Pong Club, right?
Hell no. Talk about things that go out of their way to offend you.
By far, yes.
I would
that one didn't hold up when it was out.
That is actually a very difficult question because I haven't really thought too much about what would really be just straight up the funniest show. This is high in the running. I would say Hetalia is fairly high in the running. Maybe some of the shows like maybe like Keon, or I have not yet had the opportunity to watch either Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid or Spy Family, but both of those manga are flippin' hilarious. So I would like to see them. But if I were to pick one, I'm sure it's probably no surprise. I'd probably go with Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. That would probably be my go-to if I wanted to just say, hey, this is a hilarious show. But I definitely, it's really hard for me to say. The Negi remix was another one that could be in the running because that was pretty fun. There's, so many of them that Ranma, actually is pretty damn funny. I myself need to see Gintama. I've seen bits and pieces, but not nearly enough to rate it. But one day. But anyway, I'm Kotobuki Jake. And when I'm not watching anime, which I don't watch nearly as much now as I would like, but I do, try to get a little bit in here and there. I am the co-host of the, at this point, occasional YouTube channel, SeptumSin versus the World. We're working on a number of projects. This, of course, is the one of a handful of semi-regular ones we still got going, but the Versus Awards are coming up soon, and I'm working really hard to get a few more films knocked out so that my list will be awesome. And I'm still hoping to hear from a lot of other people. Incidentally, Roger, there were a lot of anime that came out last year. You know, you just might be able to put a list together. But but at any rate, and maybe you'll know where, or Brittany, maybe one of y'all will know where Brandon can find Suzume, because he doesn't know. He's thinking he won't get to see it. So
It's on Crunchyroll.
is it? Okay,
Well,
there you go.
Eventually, it'll come out physically.
Anyway, and of course, I keep very busy. I've got a day job that pays the bills, and I'm also the co-founder of a local native plant nursery. We're gearing up for a really big sale in 2 weeks, so that's going to be pretty cool and kind of kickstart the fall season, which is friggin' hot as this summer has been. I'm looking forward to fall. But anyway, yeah. But of course, you know, whenever we do get this show off and we got some anime to look at, I'm always happy to get on and throw in my 2 cents. And yeah, I know this is one that has largely fallen by the wayside, so it's kind of cool that we got to bring it out and dust it off for a little bit.
Well, of course, I have a lot of favorites that I can think of. Like one of my favorites that's not seen a lot of, Gayu Manga Biori. Probably butchered that, but it was one of my favorites. Made me laugh. I can't find it because it's really hard to localize. But as far as localized anime, I would say Ghost Stories. I really like that one, that humor. Shinesman. I put that in not long ago, and I still found it hilarious. Almost wish that it got a longer series. But with that, you know, we are here for SeptumSin versus the world. We are very spontaneous in our uploads, but we are planning on coming back to this maybe by the end of the month, maybe the first week in August, probably the first week in August to give people time. Because I know that, because if I recall,
I would say first week in the August is probably a tough shoot, but a shoot for the next one. It's 22 episodes.
So probably that would work.
Yeah.
For your birthday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Which was last week.
So what's your selection that we're going to be watching? We're going to try to move this to Wednesdays, so that there'll be less complications for me. But Wednesday, what series are we watching?
Well, we're going to be going from our comedy high here and going into a dramatic low. We're going to be hitting probably one of the saddest animes of all time, Your Lie in April.
Oh, that's a good selection. You got my vote.
I look forward to finally watching my copy, but I'm not holding my breath. I may have to stream it, so we'll see.
And for all those people trying to watch along at home, all like maybe one of you, where can they stream it?
Oh, Crunchyroll. It's flat out available on Crunchyroll. It used to be available on Netflix, but they removed it. So, yeah, just Crunchyroll these days.
Yeah. Your Lie in April was put out by AntiClimax, which is owned by Sony. So, of course, it will be on Crunchymation Sony. Or Sony
Yes.
Crunchymation.
They got their own conglomeration. But with that,
They're merging. They're merging. They now have the same logo.
But with that being said, I hope you all have enjoyed this. If you did, hit that like, hit that subscribe, but we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.